Hello and welcome to the Foilist TV. This is the second of 3 videos that I'm making covering the Paris Olympics. In case you missed it, the first video, covering Maxime Pauty versus Tommaso Marini in the round of 16, went up last Monday, and the third and final video will go up next Monday. After that, I will unfortunately be withdrawing into the shadows for another long while. But while we're here, let's make the most of it, shall we? This is a round of 8 bout featuring Maxime Pauty, who just had his epic win against Tommaso Marini that I analyzed last week, going up against Iimura Kazuki, the Japanese hotshot who just graduated from juniors last season. This bout was an epic 15-14 win for Iimura, and it was nearly another miracle comeback for Pauty, who managed to bring it back from 14-10 to 14-14 before losing in a nearly identical situation to his own last touch against Marini. Because this bout was quite short and action-packed, I'm going to bring back my old slideshow format and do some general analysis here to help the commentary flow better. The first thing I want to talk about is the tempo. Both Iimura and Pauty like to go pretty fast and aggressively off the lines. Maybe that's a bit less true for Pauty, but he had just used that situation to great effect against Marini, so it was clearly working well for him that day. However, Iimura was clearly even more comfortable playing that game, as Pauty started to lose pretty quickly early on, despite a few nice touches of his own. So, he abruptly did a strategic 180. He started fencing really slowly and controlled, letting Iimura march at him, and keeping the distance pretty wide to give him more time to see Iimura's attacks and counterattacks coming. That's not Pauty's preferred mode of operation, but it was even less so for Iimura. It took Iimura a long time to stop mirroring Pauty's slower tempo and march to the beat of his own drum, as it were. And while he did, Pauty was able to claw his way back to being pretty much even. Also, once he had established the slower tempo, he was able to sneak in some quick accelerations and running attacks to catch Iimura off guard. More on that later. However, as Iimura started acting more decisively, the tempo of the bout gradually increased again, and eventually it devolved back into a bunch of actions right off the lines, a situation that still favored Iimura and eventually allowed him to win. There were also some interesting tactical ideas specific to the off-the-line situation. A common way of thinking about this situation is the game of rock, paper, scissors, with a simple attack, a search for the blade, and a slow start as the 3 choices. In some cases like this, it's possible to chain 2 phrases together. For example, a few times Iimura would attack off the line and Pauty would successfully parry, and each time Iimura would start slow on the next phrase. During his comeback, Pauty exploited that, landing a parry riposte against Iimura's attack off the line, and then immediately going for a running attack off the line, which scored against Iimura's slow start. I'm not sure if Pauty was consciously aware of that pattern, but I think he must have registered it at some level. Furthermore, it's worth noting that, unlike rock, paper, scissors, it is very possible to lose a situation that you should win. 2 standout examples were Iimura going for an immediate remise and closeout after Pauty parried his attack off the line, and Iimura's last touch being a simple attack but delivered with a coupe to avoid Pauty's search. And of course, even ties can go one way or the other. When both fencers started slow, Pauty was often able to win by being the first to commit to a real attack, and when both fencers made simple attacks, Iimura was often able to get off the line a little bit ahead. And finally, since I haven't really talked in depth about it, I want to say a few things about this classic French running attack. Pauty used it to pretty good effect here, but his choice of when to use it was very interesting. First was as a turnaround, immediately after parrying or escaping from Iimura's attack. Often, Iimura was expecting Pauty to start marching rather than immediately hitting, so he wasn't ready for it. Second was after a slow start off the line and seeing Iimura also going slow. In this situation, the first fencer to commit is usually the winner, and making a big cross-step let Pauty commit very quickly and from a very long distance. Plus, even when Iimura was able to consistently parry, he still had trouble landing his riposte due to how rapidly the distance was collapsing. And third was as a finish to a marching attack, but specifically chosen right after Iimura opened the distance a bit. Usually when fencers do that, it's either to set up a moment of decision as they step back in, or to buy them some time to evaluate what's going on. In either case, they're usually not thinking about what's right in front of them at that exact instant, which means if you can attack them immediately from that far away, they often won't be ready. All 3 of these situations were facilitated by Pauty keeping the overall tempo very slow, as I mentioned before. On the turnaround, he had to show Iimura many slow starts so he wouldn't be ready in that moment. Off the line, he had to make Iimura start slow in the first place, and on the march, he had to go slow enough to make Iimura feel safe at that distance. This is the real strength of the French running attack, how it complements every other tool at their disposal, and how it can punish even a tiny lapse in focus. Anyway, that's all I have to say for now. As always, the link to the commentary video on my website is in the description. Feel free to discuss this bout in the comments, and until next week, stay sharp.